Anyways, just want to quickly go over some of the things that have been recently happening in AMC. I do have an opportunity to, I've pretty much watched AMC ticker all day, every day, and that's the only stock I've watched. I've been watching tons of YouTube videos and I read forums, and not because I really am worried about if they're right or not, and none of us are going to be completely right in our, I guess, hypotheses about what the stock's going to do, but there's a couple of important things that I want to talk about briefly before we, that I haven't heard too many other, I guess, analysts or other guys, whether they're on new chat rooms or Reddit or YouTube or StockTwits or whatever, a couple of things. So we had the run up in like May, June. So the stock went up here, and then it finally took a pretty nasty dip down here to like $25. And this is, we'll just say this is like $11, and this is 14, right about in here, and this is 77. So one of the important indicators that I've been looking at is called on balance volume, or OBV. There's a lot of stocks. There's one stock that you can look at to contrast AMC versus, and that, or I guess other stocks, is Sava or Casa Sciences. They're a biotech company. If you look at the OBV chart, if you do a 1 year daily candle chart for the OBV, that chart, because the stock has been like this, the stock is all over the place. It's from $2 to $144. And it's had hit pieces and all kinds of stuff, but the on balance volume looks very similar like the chart. And the reason I'm just showing you that quickly is on balance volume can just be a real simple indicator of buying demand. So the chart for AMC for on balance volume looks very much like this. And what does that mean? It means that all of these price movements that come up here and do all this craziness, it doesn't mean anything. It means somebody's holding the stock down because the OBV value is increasing. Okay? It means the demand is still there for the stock. It doesn't matter if the stock goes down to zero, okay? The big giant goose egg. It doesn't matter if it's gone up to $77, okay? That was the only time we saw a small dip. If you look at the weekly, actually, if you look at a 4-hour chart for OBV, check that out on AMC, you'll see a small dip in here for the on-balance volume where it kind of comes down and then it comes back up. That's the only time you'll see a dip, when it gets $77. Right now, the stock's dirt cheap. So this idea, I mean, a lot of the stuff I've been watching is that AMC is gonna, it's gonna come down here to 25, and then it's gonna come back up and do all this reset stuff, and then finally bounce forward. And that's maybe based off of a fractal or a zone of transition. These fractals are based off of what happened in the stock previously, the movements that were there, volume. There's tons and tons of indicators for them. But it's like maybe the one from January is repeating in this zone, but that's not actually, that was a completely different, like AMC was barely a thing there in, like GameStop was a thing, but AMC wasn't, like, I guess people had kind of heard about it, but the stock had only come up from like $1.95, and it like at $4.40. I remember I had a $4.50, $4.40 average, and the next day it spiked to 27 in pre-market. So it wasn't that, Reddit had just gotten a hold of it here in late January. The reason I'm telling you that is that OBV value is still a steady line, and the shorts are playing all kinds of games, and they are absolutely buried. I mean, there's tons and tons of evidence that they're so far buried. Now that the stock has come down here to that $25 zone, and we got a V shape recovery. Oh, and today they spoofed, which basically, so the stock's coming up here because you look at the Fidelity buy order flow charts every day, it's like 75% buy. Like any given day on AMC, it's pretty much that. I mean, yeah, there's ways to spoof that too, but the stock, if they're not able to short it or spoof the tape, it would just do this, okay? And it would have been doing this since January, all right? So that the stock should be thousands of dollars unless somebody's pushing it down. The only way to really do that is to play games on tape or, add in shares to short, stuff like that. But when they shorted down here at this $25 level, this is what's called the suicide run. Okay? Is all this stuff, when they came down here, the short interest is high as it's been in months. It's over 2 days to cover, which is pretty high, and that's based off of the current average daily volume. And the problem is when they decide to cover, that's based on the volume that day. So the only way to cover in less time is to increase the volume. Okay, and we're currently seeing around 45 mil 2 days in a row. And I think that's what they're planning on, is somewhere in here at 32.50 or 33, somebody's going to start covering. I mean, they've been at $31.50, $32. They've been pushing that hard, registering our orders as neutral, spoofing the tape where it'll just suddenly drop all of a sudden, and then it'll kind of come back up. And they've been defending that 31.50, the 31.50 zone hard, super hard. Really, it's probably 32. And it's because they spent all of their money on the suicide run. Okay, and a lot of them are trapped in this zone. This $33, $35 area is it's just death for them. I just don't. I'm sure that they will play games to get out of it, but I think somebody's going to want to get out. And that chart would look exactly like Volkswagen. Volkswagen, there's some history behind it, but basically Porsche announced 90% ownership in Volkswagen after they had bought the shares. They publicly announced the ownership. So the squeeze kind of starts and it runs up here, and then there's this suicide run. Down in here into the ditch, okay? And then it bounces, makes a V-shaped recovery, comes up, and then you get the squeeze. That's my guess, just a guess about what's gonna happen with AMC. That could easily be that 35 through, $35 through $45 range. The reason AMC stayed in the range it was is because they probably didn't have the liquidity on hand to let it go up over that. We know it stopped for AMC when it went to 77. They had bought shares on the way up, okay? They had probably bought, and that's the thing, is they had covered, but they had also bought a bunch of shares, and they still have a lot of shares. These institutions that are shorting AMC, if you look at how many shares they own millions of shares. Millions. So when it does squeeze, some of my thoughts are they're going to squeeze this thing to, 300 plus, maybe 600, and then they're going to dump their 20 million shares on the open market and crash it down to $30. Okay? The whole point of that is to get retail out of their positions. That's the only way this works. This doesn't work if retail holds or if they, walk away from their computer when the first, we'll call this the first fake squeeze. Okay? Because this is anything less than $1,000. It's just a bunch of garbage. It's just numbers on the screen, and they might cover the 70 plus million shares short that are known, but it doesn't mean they covered all the rest. I mean, you would have to, like this move from $14 was a very small portion of the shares on loan. It was like 20% or something like that to go from here to here. And that was a pretty big percentage move. And that was only like 20%. So you can do some research on what exact percentage that is. But if they cover 100%, we'll get a much bigger move. And that's why I'm looking for stuff like this. They'll come out and say that they covered. No. Either way, guys, I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions.